The Zalthari Empire had taken over 47 star systems. Their way of fighting was simple. They used more ships than anyone else. They had better weapons than anyone else. They always won. When they found Earth, they thought it would be easy. The humans were not advanced. They had basic weapons and slow ships. The Zalthari commanders believed this would be another quick victory. Commander Vex Raal stood on his warship called Sovereign Dawn. He looked at Earth on his screen. The planet was blue and green, spinning slowly in space. The people living there had only just learned to send messages faster than light. They could not travel between stars yet. Their weapons used gunpowder and explosives. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. The war would be over in days, maybe hours. The first group of Zalthari ships came down through the sky over North America. Thousands of ships arrived. Each ship had plasma cannons that could destroy entire buildings in seconds. The aliens expected the humans to panic. They expected chaos and fear. They expected the humans to give up quickly. They did not expect Lieutenant Danny Cooper. Danny was part of a special test program. The military had given him and a few hundred other soldiers a new type of technology. Small devices called neural implants were put into their brains. These implants were supposed to make them react faster and see better. The technology was still new. Nobody knew if it would really work in a real fight. When the alien fighters flew over the military base in Nevada, Danny and his team were ready. They ran across the desert and hid behind rocks and old vehicles. The alien ships moved incredibly fast. Their weapons turned sand into glass. The heat was so intense that the air itself seemed to burn. Danny crouched behind a concrete wall. His implant was working. It showed him information faster than he could think. He could see where the enemy ships were going. He could tell how fast they were moving. He could predict where they would attack next. His rifle felt like part of his body. 3 fighter ships came toward him. The front ship opened fire. A ball of super-hot plasma flew at Danny at impossible speed. The air turned purple. Most people could not even see something moving that fast. Most people would be dead before they knew what happened. Danny moved. His body twisted and turned with perfect control. The implant told his muscles what to do before his brain could think about it. He spun on his heel and dropped down low. He brought his rifle up in one smooth motion. The plasma bolt passed so close that it burned his uniform, but it missed him. What happened next would change everything. Danny fired his rifle. The bullet was old technology compared to alien weapons, but it hit exactly where Danny aimed. The bullet struck the plasma cannon on the bottom of the ship, just as it was getting ready to fire again. The explosion ripped the fighter in half. Burning pieces fell across the desert. The other 2 ships changed their attack. They saw that Danny was dangerous. They came in faster from different directions. They fired in patterns that should have given him no way to escape. There should have been nowhere to run. Danny saw it all. Every angle, every timing, every weakness. His implant processed everything in less than a second. His body moved like a machine built for this exact purpose. He rolled to the left and came up shooting. His bullet hit the second ship's stabilizer. The craft spun out of control and crashed into a nearby wall of rock. The third ship tried to fly away, but Danny was already aiming at it. Another shot. Another dead ship. On the Sovereign Dawn, Commander Vex Raal watched the recordings of the fight. He could not believe what he saw. His officer played the video 3 times. They studied every second of it. The human had dodged plasma fire. Not by accident or luck. He had moved on purpose with calculation and skill. He had known where the shots would be before they were fired. He had read the attack patterns and countered them perfectly. 3 of their best fighters were destroyed by 1 soldier with a simple gun. Even more strange were the humans' movements. The speed, the precision. The total lack of fear or hesitation. It was as if he could see the future, reacting to dangers before they fully happened. Vex Raal felt worried for the first time. In 47 conquered systems across hundreds of battles, he had never seen anything like this. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy to defeat. He ordered his ships to pull back. They needed to think about this. But even as he gave the orders, a cold feeling settled in his chest. This was not going to be the easy war they had expected. Back on Earth, Danny reloaded his weapon and looked at the sky. The neural implant had worked better than anyone hoped. But he could feel the strain on his body. His head hurt badly. His muscles ached from movements that pushed him to his limits. But he was alive, and the aliens were leaving. Other soldiers with implants were reporting similar results all around the base. The technology worked. Against all odds, humans had found a way to fight the aliens. The implants let them match the enemy in combat even though their weapons were weaker. The war had just started. But in those first few minutes of fighting, a message had been sent to the Zalthari Empire. Humans were not weak prey. They were hunters. They were dangerous, and they fought in ways the galaxy had never seen before. News of the battle spread quickly through the alien fleet. The commanders could not understand it. How could primitive humans fight so well? How could they dodge weapons that moved faster than sound? How could simple bullets destroy their advanced fighters? The answer was the implants. But the Zalthari did not know that yet. They only saw the results. Soldiers who moved too fast. Soldiers who seemed to predict attacks. Soldiers who never missed their shots. It was like fighting an enemy that could see a few seconds into the future. Danny sat down on a rock and drank some water. Around him, other soldiers were checking their weapons and talking quietly. They had survived the first attack. But everyone knew the aliens would come back. They would come back with more ships and better plans. A medical officer came over to check on Danny. She scanned his implant with a small device. The readings showed that his brain was working much harder than normal. The implant was pushing his nervous system to dangerous levels. "You need to rest," the officer said. "The implant is putting too much strain on you." Danny shook his head. "No time for rest. They will be back soon." The officer looked worried but did not argue. She knew he was right. The war was not over. It had barely begun. In the command center, military leaders were watching reports from all over the world. The alien invasion had hit multiple locations at the same time. But everywhere the enhanced soldiers fought, the results were the same. Humans were winning battles they should have lost. Soldiers with implants were defeating enemies with superior technology. A general stood before a large screen showing the battle data. "We have a chance," he said to the room. "The implants work. We can fight them. But we need more soldiers with this technology. We need thousands of them." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. They would have to put implants in thousands of soldiers' brains. The technology was still experimental. There would be side effects. Some soldiers might not survive the procedure, but there was no choice. Without the implants, humanity would lose this war. Danny looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the aliens were planning their next attack. They were studying what happened. They were adapting, but humans would adapt too. That was what humans did best. They learned. They changed. They survived. The first battle was over. The real war was about to begin. 3 days after the failed invasion, the Zalthari Empire held an emergency meeting. Leaders from all their conquered territories gathered on the flagship Eternal Dominion. Commander Vexral stood before them. He looked tense and frustrated. The meeting room was completely silent. A large screen showed videos from the Earth battle. Every leader watched as human soldiers moved with impossible speed. They watched humans dodge energy weapons that had destroyed countless other civilizations. The Zalthari were losing soldiers. This had not happened in hundreds of years. High Admiral Threshkar was very old. His scales were dark with age. He had personally conquered 30 star systems. He had never seen anything like these humans. "The humans are changed," Vexral explained. His words were translated into standard galactic language. "They have put technology directly into their brains. It makes them react faster. It makes them see better. They can move as fast as we can, maybe faster." A wave of concern passed through the council. The Zalthari had better technology than most species, but their natural speed had always been their biggest advantage. Their reactions were 3 times faster than most other beings. The humans had somehow made up for that difference using machines. "How many of these changed soldiers do they have?" Threshkar asked. "Our spies say several thousand," Vexral replied. "But the number is growing fast. They are making more of these brain implants very quickly. In a few months, they could have tens of thousands of enhanced soldiers." The news was shocking. The Zalthari had hundreds of thousands of soldiers. But if even a small part of Earth's military got these implants, everything would change. Individual human soldiers were already defeating multiple Zalthari fighters. On Earth, Lieutenant Danny Cooper sat in a medical room. Doctors were giving him his 3rd implant upgrade in 3 weeks. The technology was improving quickly. Each new version made soldiers react faster and think better. Each upgrade added new combat abilities. The side effects were terrible. Danny got severe headaches. His muscles would suddenly spasm without warning. Sometimes he would black out for a few seconds, but he volunteered for every upgrade anyway. He had seen what the Zalthari did to planets they conquered. There were recordings from their other invasions. The aliens did not negotiate. They showed no mercy. Captain Linda Hayes walked into the medical room. She had her own implant. It showed as a thin silver line behind her ear. She had been one of the first volunteers for the program. Now she commanded a special unit made entirely of enhanced soldiers. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Danny managed a weak smile. "Like I could fight an entire army." "Good," Linda said. Her face was serious. "Because we are about to. Intelligence says a major alien attack is forming in space. They are bringing in more ships from other areas. They are not underestimating us anymore." The second battle for Earth started at sunrise. This time the Zalthari were ready. They used new tactics. They spread their forces out to prevent concentrated human attacks. They used long-range weapons instead of close combat. They had learned from their first defeat, but humans had learned too. Danny's unit moved through the destroyed remains of Denver. Their enhanced senses tracked enemy positions through smoke and rubble. The implants had been upgraded with network capability. This let soldiers share battle information in real time. They moved like one creature. Each soldier knew where the others were without speaking. A Zalthari patrol appeared at the end of a broken street. 6 warriors in powered armor. Their weapons were charged and ready. Under normal circumstances, they would have been overwhelming force. Danny's implant showed him the solution in less than a second. He did not think. He simply acted. He threw a flash grenade, but not to blind the enemies. The grenade created a path of ionized air. When the Zalthari fired their plasma weapons, the bolts followed the ionized path. They missed their targets by several feet. In that moment of confusion, Danny's unit attacked. They moved with perfect coordination. Each soldier targeted specific weak points in the Zalthari armor. Bullets found gaps. Explosive charges hit critical joints. Within seconds, all 6 enemies were down. The battle continued for 3 days. By the end, the Zalthari had lost thousands of soldiers and dozens of ships. They pulled back again. This time they went to orbit where they could think about their entire strategy. On the Eternal Dominion, High Admiral Threshkar stared at the casualty reports. He could barely believe what he was reading. They had lost more soldiers in 3 days fighting humans than in the previous 10 years of conquest combined. "The humans are not just matching us," Vexral said quietly. "They are learning faster than we can adapt. Every fight teaches them something new. Every defeat makes them stronger," Threshkar thought carefully. He had built his reputation on being smarter than his opponents. He could always outthink and outmaneuver any enemy. But this was different. The humans were not following normal military rules. They were making things up as they went. They were adapting and changing with terrifying speed. For the first time in his long military career, High Admiral Threshkar felt doubt. On Earth, Danny stood in the ruins with his unit. Everyone was exhausted but alive. Around them, other enhanced soldiers were meeting up and sharing combat data. The implants recorded everything. They were creating a huge database of tactics and counter-tactics. Linda walked over. Her face was covered in dirt and sweat. "We bought ourselves time," she said. "But they will come back." Danny nodded and checked his weapon. "Let them come. We will be ready." The war had changed. It was no longer just invasion and defense. It had become a race. Each side was trying to adapt faster than the other. Each side was pushing the limits of what was possible in warfare. And as the sun set over Earth's scarred landscape, one truth was becoming clear to both sides. This war would not be decided by better technology or more soldiers. It would be decided by the will to survive, and in that area, humanity had an advantage the Zalthari were only beginning to understand. In the following weeks, both sides prepared for the next phase of war. The Zalthari brought in more ships. They developed new weapons specifically designed to counter human tactics. They created jamming devices to interfere with neural implants. But humans were preparing too. Factories worked around the clock producing implants. Thousands of soldiers volunteered for the enhancement program. Scientists improved the technology every day. Each new version was faster and more powerful than the last. Danny underwent 2 more upgrades. Each one was harder than the last. The pain was intense. The recovery took longer. But he could feel himself becoming something more than human. His reaction time was now 4 times faster than a normal person. He could track 50 different targets at once. He could calculate complex battle scenarios in his head instantly. Other soldiers were showing similar improvements. The enhanced humans were becoming a new kind of warrior. They combined human creativity with machine precision. They had the adaptability of organic life and the speed of computers. The Zalthari watched this development with growing alarm. Their intelligence reports showed that humanity was not just defending itself. They were evolving. The war was changing them at a fundamental level, and the changes were happening faster than anyone thought possible. Commander Vexral studied the reports late into the night. He saw patterns that troubled him deeply. The humans were not fighting to win territory. They were fighting to survive. And that made them infinitely more dangerous. A species fighting for survival would try anything. They would take any risk. They would pay any price. He remembered something his mentor had told him many years ago. The most dangerous enemy is not the one with the best weapons. It is the one with nothing left to lose. The humans had everything to lose. Their planet, their families, their entire species. And that desperation was turning them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Vexral made a decision. He sent a message to High Admiral Threshkar. "We need to end this war quickly," the message said. "The longer it continues, the more dangerous they become. We are not fighting humans anymore. We are fighting the idea of what humans can become. And I do not know if we can win that fight." 6 months into the war, everything had reached a standstill. The Zalthari controlled space but could not effectively take over Earth's surface. Humanity controlled the ground but could not fight the alien fleet in orbit. Cities had become fortified strongholds. The countryside was divided into zones that both sides fought over constantly. Lieutenant Danny Cooper had been promoted to captain after his many successes. His neural implant had been upgraded 7 times. Each upgrade pushed the limits of human ability further. He could track 30 targets at once. He could calculate complex bullet paths in real time. He could coordinate with his team through pure thought. But the Zalthari had adapted too. They now used heavier armor. They bombarded targets from orbit before sending ground troops. They had developed jamming technology designed to interfere with human neural implants. The technological race showed no signs of stopping. The turning point came during a mission that nobody had planned. Intelligence had found a Zalthari command post in the ruins of Phoenix. The facility coordinated all enemy operations in the region. Several high-ranking officers were there. Command approved a strike mission with one clear goal: eliminate the leadership and disrupt their organization. Danny's team moved in under cover of darkness. They traveled through the destroyed city with practiced stealth. The implants hid their heat signatures. They coordinated their movements to avoid detection patterns. They reached the target building without being seen. The attack should have been quick and clean. Instead, it became something that military historians would study for generations. As Danny's team entered the facility, they discovered something unexpected. High Admiral Threshkar himself was there. He was conducting a personal inspection of the command post. The highest-ranking Zalthari military officer in the sector was within reach. The Zalthari security forces reacted instantly. The facility erupted into a fight that tested every ability of the enhanced soldiers. Danny found himself facing the High Admiral's elite guard. These warriors were enhanced with the best combat technology the Zalthari Empire had. The fight happened in compressed time. Each second stretched into what felt like minutes as neural implants pushed human perception to its limits. Danny moved through a corridor filled with plasma fire. His body responded to threats before his mind registered them. He rolled under one blast. He deflected another with a shield. He returned fire with mechanical precision. A Zalthari guard came at him from the side, moving with enhanced speed. Danny's implant tracked the movement. It calculated the intercept vector. It executed the counter in one fluid motion. He pivoted and caught the alien's weapon arm. He delivered a strike that found a weakness in the armor joints. The guard went down. But what happened next changed everything. Threshkar himself stepped into the corridor with a personal plasma weapon. The High Admiral was old by Zalthari standards. His scales had scars from 100 battles, but his eyes were sharp. His movements carried the weight of vast experience. He fired. The plasma bolt should have ended everything. Threshkar was known as one of the finest marksmen in the Zalthari military. His shot was perfectly aimed, but Danny saw it coming. not just the shot itself. He saw the tiny movements that came before it. The slight shift in Threshkar's stance, the tension in his trigger finger, the angle of the weapon barrel. The neural implant processed it all in microseconds. It fed the solution directly to Danny's muscles. Danny's hand moved with impossible speed. He drew his combat knife and threw it in one continuous motion. But he did not throw it at Threshkar. He threw it at the plasma bolt itself. The blade was made of advanced materials designed to withstand extreme heat. It hit the bolt mid-flight. The super-hot plasma exploded against the knife, creating a brief, brilliant flash. The explosion threw Danny backward. But the deadly energy was deflected away from him. He hit the ground rolling and came up with his rifle, aiming at Threshkar before the High Admiral could fire again. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Danny had a clear shot at the highest-ranking enemy officer in the sector. Threshkar knew it. Every calculation said Danny should take the shot, but Danny did not fire. He saw something in Threshkar's eyes. Not fear, but recognition. The High Admiral had witnessed what just happened. He had seen a human being deflect a plasma bolt in midair through pure reflex and skill. It was something that should not have been possible. It violated every assumption the Zalthari had made about human abilities. Threshkar slowly lowered his weapon. His face moved in what might have been respect or acceptance. He spoke in heavily accented English, words he must have learned specifically for this possibility. "The war is lost," he said quietly. Danny kept his rifle trained on the High Admiral but did not fire. Behind him, his team secured the facility and neutralized the remaining guards. The building fell silent except for the crackling of damaged electronics. "Explain," Danny said. Threshkar's translator processed his words. "We have conquered 47 systems. We have faced species with better technology, greater numbers, more advanced weapons. We have always won because we understood warfare. We understood strategy and tactics developed over thousands of years." He gestured at the corridor and the fallen guards. "But you humans are different. You do not fight like any species we have met. You adapt faster than we can respond. You take medical technology and turn it into weapons within months. You deflect plasma fire with throwing knives." A bitter sound came from his translator. "We thought we were bringing order to a primitive world. Instead, we awoke something we cannot defeat. Every battle we fight teaches you more. Every tactic we develop you counter. You are not learning warfare from us. You are inventing it anew with every fight." Danny lowered his rifle slightly. "So you are surrendering?" Threshkar made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I am acknowledging reality. The Zalthari Empire has never lost a war, but we have also never met a species like yours. If we continue this conflict, one of two things will happen. Either we destroy your world completely from orbit, making it worthless to both of us, or you will eventually develop weapons capable of challenging our fleet. Based on your progress, the latter seems more likely." He straightened, his posture formal despite the defeat. "I will propose a ceasefire to the Empire's Council. We will withdraw from your system. But understand this, you have changed the galaxy. Word of this war will spread. Other species will learn that the Zalthari can be defeated. The consequences of that knowledge are beyond calculation." Danny secured the High Admiral and called for extraction. The mission had succeeded beyond all expectations. But as he watched Threshkar being led away by his team, he understood the weight of what had happened. Humanity had won not through better technology or overwhelming force. They won through pure adaptability. They had taken everything the Zalthari threw at them and turned it into lessons, into advantages, into victories. The neural implants were just one example. Human creativity had been the true weapon all along. News of the High Admiral's capture and his words spread quickly. Within days, Zalthari forces began withdrawing from Earth. Within weeks, the Empire's Council officially recognized the ceasefire. The war was over, but both sides knew it was just the beginning. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, and the galaxy would never be the same. The ceasefire held, but peace was fragile. It was built on mutual respect and mutual fear. The Zalthari withdrew their forces from Earth's solar system, but they left surveillance posts at the edge of the system, constantly watching humanity's development. They needed to know if and when humans became a threat to the broader galaxy. Captain Danny Cooper found himself in an unexpected role. He became an ambassador. High Admiral Threshkar had specifically requested him as the human liaison for formal peace talks. The irony was not lost on anyone. The two warriors who had faced off in that Phoenix corridor were now sitting across a negotiation table. The negotiations took place on a neutral station built specifically for this purpose. It was positioned halfway between Earth and the nearest Zalthari outpost. The station was amazing. It combined human and Zalthari engineering in awkward harmony. "Your species fascinates me," Threshkar said during one session. His translator made his words into precise English. "We have studied you extensively since the ceasefire. Your history is filled with conflict, yet you consistently survive and advance through periods that should have destroyed you." Danny thought carefully before responding. "We are adaptable. It is not always pretty. We make plenty of mistakes. But we learn, sometimes the hard way." The High Admiral thought about this. "That adaptability is why we could not defeat you. The Zalthari Empire has refined our military methods over thousands of years. It is efficient, proven, and until now undefeated. But it is also static. We improve slowly, building on established strategies. You humans rebuild from the ground up with every challenge." He pulled up a display showing military fights from across the galaxy. "These are conflicts from our other conquests." Each one followed predictable patterns. Initial resistance, gradual wearing down, eventual surrender. Your war looked nothing like these. Every battle was different. You never fought the same way twice. Danny studied the data. "It is because we had no choice. We could not match your technology, so we had to be unpredictable. Every loss taught us something. Every survivor brought back data that changed how we fought the next time." "Precisely," Threshkar said. "And that is why I told you the war was lost. Not because we could not destroy your world. We could have made it uninhabitable. But because the more we fought, the more dangerous you became. The pattern was clear. Given enough time, you would have found ways to challenge even our fleet. The peace treaty that came from these talks was unlike anything in galactic history. It was not a surrender or victory for either side. Instead, it established Earth as a sovereign system with restrictions. Humanity would limit military expansion beyond their solar system for 50 years, but they kept full control within it. The Zalthari recognized human territory and agreed to share certain non-military technologies. Most importantly, the treaty included something that shocked the galactic community. An invitation for Earth to join the Galactic Council as an observer state. It was unprecedented for a species that had only just achieved interstellar communication. Back on Earth, people were still processing what first contact and the war meant. The neural enhancement program that began as desperate military measure was now being adapted for civilian use. The technology that saved humanity in war was being changed to help with medical response, disaster relief, and space exploration. Danny visited one of the medical facilities where veterans were receiving treatment for implant problems. Many enhanced soldiers had chronic issues, neurological strain, muscle damage, psychological effects from processing information at superhuman speeds. They had sacrificed their health for humanity's survival. Captain Linda Hayes was among them. Her implant showed visible scarring where repeated upgrades had damaged the surrounding tissue. She managed to smile when Danny entered her room. "Heard you are playing politician now," she said. "Someone has to," Danny replied, taking a seat beside her bed. "How are you doing?" Linda shrugged. "Doctors say the damage is permanent. The implant pushed my nervous system too hard for too long. I will never be what I was." Danny felt a familiar weight of responsibility. All of them, every enhanced soldier, had paid a price. They had won, but the cost was measured in bodies and minds pushed beyond their limits. Was it worth it? Linda asked suddenly. The question hung in the air. Danny thought about the thousands who had died, the millions displaced, the world forever changed by alien contact. But he also thought about humanity's survival, about children who would grow up in a galaxy where Earth was recognized as sovereign, where humans had proven they belonged among the stars. "Yes," he said finally. "We survived. We protected our home. We earned our place out there. That had to be worth it." Linda nodded slowly. "Then I guess we did our job." The galactic community reacted to the Zalthari human war with fear and fascination mixed together. Dozens of species sent diplomatic representatives to Earth. They wanted to understand the humans who had done what no one else had, forcing the Zalthari to negotiate rather than conquer. Some saw humanity as potential allies. Others viewed them as a threat that needed to be contained. But all recognized that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. Threshkar, in his final meeting with Danny before returning to Zalthari space, offered a warning wrapped in respect. "Your people have a saying," the High Admiral said. "With great power comes great responsibility. You have proven yourselves capable warriors. The galaxy will remember that. But how you use that reputation will define your species for generations to come." Danny clasped the alien's offered hand in what had become their customary greeting. "We did not ask for this war. We just wanted to survive it." "Survival is the first step," Threshkar replied. "What comes next is up to you." As the Zalthari delegation left, Danny stood at an observation window watching their ships fade into the distance. Earth hung in the view screen beyond, blue and green and scarred by war. But alive, still turning, humanity had survived first contact with a hostile alien empire. They had fought with courage. They had adapted with intelligence. They had ultimately earned a place among the stars through sheer determination. The cost had been high, but the alternative had been extinction. Now came the harder part. Building a future in a galaxy that knew humanity as warriors, finding a way to be more than the species that fought off the Zalthari Empire, proving that human adaptability could create as well as destroy. The war was over, but humanity's story among the stars was only beginning. Danny thought about what Threshkar had said, about power and responsibility, about reputation and legacy. The High Admiral was right. The galaxy would remember this war, would remember how humans fought, but what would they remember next? He looked at Earth through the window. Millions of people down there had no idea how close they had come to extinction. Children played in parks. Families gathered for meals. Life continued. That was what they had fought for. Not glory or conquest, just the right to exist, the right to continue. The neural implant in Danny's head pulsed gently. It was quiet now, not processing combat data or threat assessments, just running basic functions, monitoring his health, helping him think more clearly. The weapon had become a tool. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe that was what humanity could show the galaxy, that tools of war could become tools of peace, that species built for conflict could choose cooperation, that survival instinct could be channeled into creation rather than destruction. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and mistakes. Some humans would want to use their new reputation to dominate others. Some alien species would never trust them. The path forward was unclear and dangerous. But humans had never chosen the easy path. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had built civilizations from nothing. They had reached for the stars long before they had the technology to get there. Adaptability was their greatest strength. Danny turned away from the window and headed back to the negotiation chambers. There was still work to do. Treaties to finalize. Relationships to build. A future to create. The war had ended. Now the real challenge began. 20 years after the war, Earth had transformed completely. Previous generations would not recognize it. The solar system was filled with defensive stations, trade hubs, and diplomatic facilities. Humanity had not only survived contact with the wider galaxy, but had thrived. They had become a significant player in galactic affairs. Admiral Danny Cooper was considerably older now. He carried the weight of decades of service. He stood in the command center of Olympus Station, humanity's first deep space installation beyond Pluto. Through the massive window, he could see ships from a dozen different species docked at various ports. Their designs were as varied as the civilizations that built them. The neural implant he still carried was an older model now. Newer generations had surpassed it. It no longer gave him the combat edge it once had, but it remained functional, a reminder of the desperate days when enhanced reflexes meant the difference between survival and extinction. "Admiral," a young officer approached. His own implant was barely visible behind his ear. "The delegation from the Kelleran Republic has arrived. They are requesting a meeting to discuss potential military cooperation." Danny nodded. The Kellerans were the latest species seeking Earth's help. Their system was under threat from pirates operating in unregulated space. They had heard of humanity's military strength during the Zalthari War. It was a common request these days. "Schedule it for tomorrow," Danny said, "and make sure Ambassador Hayes is present." Linda Hayes had recovered from her implant injuries, though she still walked with a slight limp. She had moved from military service to diplomacy. She brought her tactical mind to the complex negotiations that defined relationships between stars. Together, she and Danny had become the face of humanity's diplomatic efforts. That evening, Danny found himself in the station's observation lounge. It was a quiet space where people went to contemplate the vastness of space. He was not surprised to find Threshkar there standing before the window. The former High Admiral had become the Zalthari Empire's permanent ambassador to humanity. It was a position that would have been unthinkable 2 decades ago, but time and mutual respect had transformed former enemies into something approaching friends. Contemplating the universe? Danny asked, joining the Zalthari at the window. Threshkar made a sound of amusement. Contemplating how much it has changed since we first met your species. The Zalthari Empire has not waged a war of conquest since our conflict. Did you know that? Danny raised an eyebrow. Because you are afraid we will stop you? Partially, Threshkar admitted, but also because you showed us that conquest is not the only path to strength. The Empire has opened diplomatic channels with dozens of species we once would have conquered. Some have become valuable allies. Others have taught us things we never would have learned through force. He turned to face Danny directly. Your victory over us was not just military. You defeated our ideology. Our certainty that might makes right. That defeat has made the Zalthari Empire stronger, though my people are still struggling to accept it. The lounge's main screen flickered to life, showing a news broadcast from Earth. A new class of enhanced individuals was graduating from the Global Defense Academy, young men and women who had grown up knowing about the wider galaxy. They were preparing to serve as the next generation of humanity's protectors and explorers. Among them was a young woman named Kate Cooper, Danny's daughter. She had been only 5 years old when the war began. She barely remembered a time before first contact. Now she stood on the edge of adulthood. Her own neural implant gleamed. She was ready to carry forward the legacy her father's generation had created. Danny felt a complicated mix of pride and concern watching her. The implants were safer now. Their side effects were better understood and managed. But they still represented a fundamental change in what it meant to be human, a merger of biology and technology that previous generations never imagined. She will make a fine officer, Threshkar observed. The younger generation of humans carries less fear than yours did. They have known only a galaxy where Earth is respected. That is what we fought for, Danny said, so they would not have to. The broadcast shifted to coverage of a humanitarian mission. A joint human-Zalthari operation was delivering relief supplies to a planet hit by natural disaster. Former enemies working side by side, their combined abilities achieving what neither could alone. It had taken years to reach this point. The initial ceasefire had been fragile. It was marked by mutual suspicion and carefully maintained distance. But gradually, through countless small interactions and cooperative projects, a genuine partnership had emerged. Trade agreements had led to cultural exchanges. Military cooperation on piracy and disaster relief had built trust. Slowly, painfully, 2 species that had tried to destroy each other learned to coexist. Linda arrived at the observation lounge, moving with the careful precision of someone who had learned to work around permanent injuries. She carried a data tablet showing the latest reports from Earth's exploration missions. We have made first contact with another species, she announced. The Viridians out in the Carina expanse. Early reports suggest they are peaceful, technologically advanced, and very interested in establishing relations. How did they react to learning about us? Danny asked. Linda smiled. They were excited. Apparently word of the species that forced the Zalthari to negotiate has spread far. They see us as proof that diplomacy can work even in impossible circumstances. Threshkar's translator gave his words a note of sadness. The galaxy remembers you as warriors who could not be defeated, but perhaps in time, they will remember you for what you built after the war ended. The 3 of them stood together, watching the stars. 2 humans and 1 Zalthari, representatives of species that had fought a brutal war and emerged changed by the experience. The galaxy would never forget that conflict, but it was no longer defined by it. On Earth, monuments had been built to those who fell during the war. Museums displayed artifacts from the battles, teaching new generations about the cost of survival. But there were also new institutions. The Interspecies Cultural Center, the Galactic Medical Exchange, the Cooperative Technology Institute. Humanity was building a legacy that extended beyond warfare. The neural enhancement technology that began as a weapon of war had evolved into tools for exploration, medicine, and research. Enhanced individuals worked in disaster zones, providing rapid response coordination, They piloted humanity's expanding fleet of exploration vessels. Their improved perception was essential for navigating unknown space. They served as translators, mediators, and bridges between species. Not everyone agreed with the direction humanity had taken. Some argued for isolation. They wanted to close Earth's borders and reject galactic integration. Others pushed for military expansion. They argued that humanity should use its reputation to build an empire of its own. The debates were fierce and ongoing. A democracy struggling with questions no human civilization had faced before. But the course had been set. Earth would not retreat into isolation. It would not become the Zalthari Empire version 2. Instead, humanity carved out a third path. Engagement without domination. Strength tempered by wisdom. The willingness to fight when necessary, but the preference for peace. Admiral Cooper, the officer, called again, more urgently this time. We are receiving a distress signal from a civilian transport. Pirates attacking in Sector 7. Danny's old instincts kicked in immediately. Scramble the quick response team. He hesitated for just a moment before adding, inform the Zalthari patrol in that sector. This is a joint operation zone already done, Admiral. The Zalthari frigate Shield of Honor is moving to intercept alongside our forces. Linda watched the tactical display as human and Zalthari ships coordinated their approach. 20 years ago, we were trying to kill each other. Now we are fighting pirates together. The universe has a sense of irony. Threshkar spoke firmly. It is not irony. It is evolution. Species either adapt or die. We chose to adapt. The rescue operation succeeded with minimal casualties. The combined human-Zalthari force stopped the pirates and escorted the civilian transport to safety. It was a small victory, barely worth mentioning in the grand scheme of galactic events, but it represented something larger: cooperation, mutual respect, the building of something new from the ashes of war. That night, Danny recorded a message for his daughter. She was now stationed on Earth awaiting her first assignment. Kate, he said, looking into the camera, you are about to step into a galaxy that your generation takes for granted, but my generation had to fight to survive. The implant you carry, the training you received, the opportunities you have, they all came at a price. People died to give you this future. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But do not let that burden you. Let it inspire you. We fought so you could build. We survived so you could thrive. The galaxy knows humanity as warriors because that is what we had to be. Show them we can be something more. The message sent, Danny returned to the observation window. Somewhere out there, the Zalthari Empire continued its own evolution. They were dealing with changes to their culture and philosophy that would have seemed impossible before meeting humanity. Dozens of other species watched Earth's development with interest, wondering what this newcomer species would ultimately become.